Today we're talking about two of my favorite integrated amplifiers, both of which are under $500. This is the Emotiva TA1, comes in at $499. And this is Yamaha AS301. It comes in at $350. Both of these amplifiers make more than 50 watts of channel into 8 ohms, and they'll both drive 4 ohm speakers. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about my two favorite integrated amplifiers, less than $500. And this is one of Frank's new free-range Pomeranians. He comes in a different flavor now. These two amplifiers kind of live in a no man's land, a weird zone without a ton of competition. The reason I say that is generally there's not a lot of traditional two-channel integrated amplifiers that live within the $300 to $500 region. There's just not a lot to choose from. And if you're after a component that's traditional size, has Class AB power, has a bunch of features, a bunch of analog inputs, an integrated DAC, and integrated phono stage, you don't have a lot of choices. But we have at least two with these. Let's talk about build quality. With the Yamaha, you get almost a vintage integrated amplifier feel when it comes to how this looks. And that design characteristic is carried throughout the line. So the AS501, 701, whatever else, all look fundamentally the same. You have a bunch of vertical knobs, big volume knob on the right, push button power on the left. The Emotiva, classic Emotiva. You have one volume knob, you have a couple of push buttons to change inputs, change trims, things like that, power button in the middle, and the Cylon visor. The Emotiva is also quite a bit shorter, but don't let that fool you. Packs a punch. The TA1 is built much better. The knobs, the buttons, it's even a heavier component in a smaller chassis. The Yamaha knobs are all plastic, and they're not even like good plastic. I'm not saying that it's gonna fall apart or break, but when you grab the volume knob on the Yamaha, and a lot of times, sometimes it's a little bit bent one way or the other, when you grab the variable loudness control, it just feels light and it feels cheap. Looks good across the room, also works, just feels significantly cheaper than the Emotiva. I think for me, the TA1 is better built. You may not like the looks of it more than the Yamaha, but it doesn't feel nearly as cheap. Ton of features on both of these integrated amplifiers. The Yamaha has a tuner input, has two other inputs, both with record outs, has a CD player input, and a phono stage that works with moving magnet cartridges. Also has one single optical input, one single coaxial digital input. Also has, now this is only for power, also has a 5-volt half amp power supply on the back, USB power supply. So you could hook up probably a Weem Mini. I wish it was a 1 amp, but it's only half an amp. But you could charge a phone on it, maybe. Single subwoofer out, 2 sets of binding posts. You can run a speaker A and a speaker B simultaneously. On the right of that, you put a little switch in the position of whatever nominal impedance your speakers are and how many pairs of speakers you're running simultaneously. Ton of options. Only thing this is missing, USB input for the DAC. TA1 has a phono preamp inside, can take in moving magnet or moving coil cartridges. Here you only have 2 additional analog inputs. You have a CD and you have an auxiliary. So with the phono stage, you get 3 total analog inputs. But next to that, something very nice. You have preamp outputs, which means you can buy this and it works right out of the box And then if you ever want to upgrade the amplifier later, you can, because it has preamp outputs. Not only does it have preamp outputs, it also has bass management, which means you can put a high pass filter on your left and right speaker, fixed at 90 hertz. You can also do this for the internal amplifier, even if you don't have an external amplifier hooked up. You also have one set of single-ended RCA outputs that can utilize the crossover and the subwoofer output. Next to that, you have the FM antenna. That's right. You get an FM tuner integrated into this integrated amplifier, the TA1. Next to that, full-size coaxial digital in, full-size optical digital in, and a full-size USB input for the internal DAC. Then you have a trigger output if you have something that you want to turn on, like a Weem Ultra, like an external power amplifier. From a feature set standpoint, again, the Emotiva TA1 wins the day, except if you need a bunch of extra analog inputs. But with the TA1, you're getting a USB input, you're getting preamp outputs, you're getting bass management, albeit it's fixed at 90 hertz, but it's better than nothing. And you're also getting a phono stage that can handle moving coil cartridges. I get it. Who's going to be buying a $500 integrated amplifier with a moving coil cartridge? I don't know. Maybe. Some people. There's a really cool Denon moving coil cartridge that I think is $350. By the way, if I'm missing any integrated amplifiers that are less than $500 that I should have been talking about too, please put it in the comments. Sound-wise, that's what you really want to know about, isn't it? Sound. How do they sound? Well, I had the Weem Ultra Streamer running digitally out from itself, and I had the new ELAC Debut 3 6.5-inch speakers hooked up to it. That, my friends, that video is coming soon. You're going to want to watch that one. So make sure you're subscribed and like this video if you're getting any value out of it. Sound-wise, depends on the track. The Hello Nasty album from Beastie Boys, I must say, is a brilliant album, and it should be used at audio shows because there is so much going on spatially, bass-wise, a ton, and it's recorded quite well. Anyway, Hello Nasty. I was listening to the Yamaha with the ELAC Debut 3s, and the amount of bass that were coming out of these speakers and that amplifier combo was borderline insane. Power-wise, the Emotiva puts out 50 watts into 8 ohms, and the Yamaha puts out 60 watts into 8 ohms. Yamaha doesn't say what it puts out into 4 ohms. Emotiva puts out 100 watts into 4 ohms. The takeaway was the Yamaha was handling a lot more bass, and it wasn't breaking up, even at 90 dB. 90 dB is SPL, that's louder than anybody should actually be listening to it. But that doesn't mean the Yamaha sounds better. With Hello Nasty, I preferred the Yamaha's Sonics over the TA1. But you have to change songs, and I changed it to I Wanna Know by Foreigner. I wanna know what love is. I want you. I sang that on one of my last videos. Anyway, this is where the TA1 kind of started mopping the floor with the Yamaha. The mid-range on the Yamaha seemed thin. It seemed boring, borderline lifeless, very sterile. It just didn't have any soul. If anything, the mid-range on the Yamaha seemed almost like it was coming from a mediocre Class D amplifier on that song. Now remember, Hello Nasty sounded fantastic, sounded perfect. I was shocked just how good it sounded. Then I tried to listen to one of my favorite songs, the Heretic Anthem by Slipknot, the live version, and it sounded terrible on both amplifiers. So I had to find a different track. Sad but true, Metallica. Sounded good on both. But the TA1 has a bit of a U-curve. So there's emphasis on the bass, and there's a little bit of emphasis on the top and mid-range as well. So you're getting a little bit of spice with the TA1 on top. The Yamaha, to me, sounded better when it had very dynamic music and a lot of bass. So if you're listening to a lot of EDM, I I think the Yamaha would actually be the better choice. Anything else, I think the TA1 would be the better choice. The takeaway, though, for me was that the Yamaha could push a little bit higher and keep things more together. TA1 easily got into 86, 88, but the Yamaha was able to drive those ELACs to 93 dB with no breakup, no issues, nothing. At lower volumes across different genres of music, I would choose the TA1. But if you're on a budget, you can't afford $500, don't worry, because the Yamaha sounds good on most tracks, but bear in mind there'll be a little bit of mid-range dryness, a little bit of dullness with the Yamaha on certain tracks. You can mitigate that a little bit with the variable loudness control, but that never really took away that grainy mid-range. Final thoughts. I think they're both great. I think the Yamaha always continues to surprise me just how good it is at $350. If you can squeeze out another $150 though, I think the TA1 is going to be the better choice for most people. You have the USB option, you have the phono stage option, and you have preamp outs, which means the TA1 can then act as a preamp. You have bass management, a lot of different options. And the TA1 at anything under about 85 dB sounds great, sounds more dynamic. There is a little bit of emphasis though in the upper mid-range and the treble, so if you have a very exciting speaker at louder volumes, it may get a little bit intense. Yamaha seemed more balanced at higher volumes. You can also get a military discount, maybe first responder discount at Emotiva. With the Yamaha, generally speaking, there's an open box or two on Crutchfield's website, so you can get it for even cheaper than $350. If the Yamaha had preamp outputs, this could be a very compelling component and may have changed my opinions as far as my final thoughts on this product. It does not have preamp outputs though. Both are great, both have fully functioning remote controls. If you need more analog inputs, Yamaha is probably the way to go. There is a step-up model, the 501, that's actually closer in price to the Emotiva, but I don't have that, so I couldn't compare those. If you like this video and you have a little bit more money to spend, you need to check out this video where I compared the TA2 to the Cambridge Audio. These integrateds come in about $1,000. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe.